Okay, in a high-stakes industrial facility, a single spark, a tiny leak, that's all it takes for things to spiral out of control, fast. And the difference between a minor hiccup and a full-blown catastrophe, it's not luck, it's having a plan. So let's break down the blueprint that turns that chaos into control.
So let's just start with the biggest question right off the bat. What is it? What's the one thing that turns a manageable problem, like a small vapor release, into a life-threatening disaster? You might think it's the chemical, or maybe the equipment that failed, but what is it really? Well, the answer, almost every single time, is the human response. See, in a crisis, our brains can just freeze up. We hesitate, we look around for what to do next. A practiced plan bypasses all that hesitation, but a flawed one, it just makes it 1,000 times worse. The initial event is really just the trigger, it's the response that decides what happens next.
To really see what this looks like in the real world, we're going to dive into a case study from a solvent facility in Gurugram. This is a perfect, and I mean perfect, example of what can go wrong when a plan completely falls apart.
And this really lays out the whole chain reaction. It all started with something pretty minor, a small vapor release. But then, the first domino falls. Somebody delayed the alarm. That leads straight to the next failure, a totally uncoordinated response. People were confused, nobody knew what their role was, and just like that, a small problem blows up into a potential catastrophe.
So how in the world do you stop this from happening? Well, the solution is this really powerful document, a true blueprint for safety, called the On-Site Emergency Plan. This is the tool that replaces that chaos with a clear, structured procedure.
And you have to understand, this isn't just some binder collecting dust on a shelf. It's a live procedure. It outlines every single action, from the second an issue is detected all the way to recovery. And its absolute, number one, non-negotiable priority is always protecting human life. Everything else, the equipment, the property, it all comes second. And it's so important to get this. These plans aren't just a good idea, something nice to have. They are a legal requirement. And there are serious consequences for facilities that don't comply. And if you look here, you can see there's a whole legal framework backing this up. You've got modern standards like the OSHA code, but it all builds on laws that go back decades. The point is, these rules have been built up over a long time for a reason. For any site dealing with hazardous materials, this is an absolutely non-negotiable part of doing business safely.
In this part, this is something we just can't stress enough. A plan is totally useless if it isn't practiced. The law specifically says you have to run mock drills at least every 6 months to build that muscle memory. Why? So that when a real alarm goes off, the response is automatic and effective, not panicked and confused.
Okay, so you have a plan. But a plan is only as good as the people and the resources ready to actually make it happen. So let's look at how a response team is put together. This is all about giving people clear roles and having the right tools ready to go at a moment's notice.
Right at the top of that pyramid, you have the incident commander. This is the one person, the single point of contact, with the authority to look at the situation, activate the full plan, and make those tough split-second decisions that can literally save lives.
Then you have the evacuation wardens, and their job is absolutely vital. Get everyone out safely. They guide people along specific routes to designated assembly points, and this part is critical. They do a head count. Because in an emergency, the question, is everyone out, is the most important one you have to answer. And the team doesn't stop there, not by a long shot. A really solid plan has a dedicated firefighting team, a medical coordinator, and a communications officer to talk to the outside world. And all of that is supported by the physical systems, the alarms, detectors, protective gear, and clearly marked evacuation routes. It's really a whole ecosystem of safety.
So, we've got the team, we've got the tools. But how do they all work together to bring order to that chaos? Well, it all comes down to a clear, logical, 8-step procedure. But before we even get to the steps, just look at this contrast. On the left, you have the Gurugram incident. Delayed, uncoordinated, escalating out of control. And on the right, that's the goal, an immediate alert, everyone knowing their roles, and swift, controlled action. That right there, that's the transformation we're talking about.
And this is how you get there. Step 1. Detection and alarm. Immediately. No delay. Step 2. The incident commander assesses how bad it is. 3. Notification. You alert your internal team and external agencies like the fire department. 4 is response activation. Then 5, evacuation starts. Step 6 is the medical response. Step 7 is all about containment and control. And finally, Step 8, you get the all clear, followed by recovery and a debrief to see what you learned.
It's a disciplined flow that leaves absolutely nothing to chance.
So the big question is, does all this theory actually work in the real world? Let's circle back to our case study in Gurugram and see what happened after they put a proper, well-practiced plan into place.
And this is the incredible part of the story. They didn't just write a new document. They fundamentally changed their entire safety culture. They installed automated alarms to get rid of any human delay. They built a dedicated, highly trained response team. They started doing those mandatory mock drills. And, so importantly, they started coordinating with the local authorities.
And here is the result. Their response time improved by a massive 40%. But you want to know the real proof? In a later, real leak, this new system worked perfectly and they had 0 injuries. That number isn't just a metric on a chart. It represents lives saved and a major crisis completely averted.
So, what are the big takeaways from all this? First, you have to practice with everyone who would actually be involved. Fire, police, local hospitals. Second, use technology for faster alerts and communication. Third, your plan is a living document. You have to keep it updated. And finally, never ever operate in a silo. Your on-site plan has to connect seamlessly with the community's emergency services.
In the end, it really all comes down to this. You can have the most detailed, beautifully written plan in the world, but if it just sits on a shelf collecting dust, it is worthless. A plan that's practiced, that's alive in the culture of a company, that is what saves everything when the worst-case scenario actually happens.